Hello and welcome to the Fast Draw live here on CBSNews.com. Have you ever wondered how traffic can be mysteriously congested when there seems to be not too many cars on the road, nor any accidents? Well, never fear. Mitch Butler is here of the Fast Draw with an animated explanation. Here you go.
Everybody hates traffic jams. And surprisingly, you don't need construction, accidents, or even a huge number of cars to cause them.
That's because there's a sneaky kind of traffic jam that just seems to come out of thin air. The phantom traffic jam.
It happens because cars slow down faster than they speed up. Here's how. This guy up ahead slows down just a little bit. So the car behind him has to brake, and the car behind him has to brake as well.
By the time that first guy up ahead speeds back up, the slowdown is still rippling through the cars behind him and growing.
Suddenly you've got a phantom traffic jam. Cars are bunching up because speeding back up takes more time than slowing down. No construction, no accidents, not even any extra cars on the road, but still stuck in traffic.
The simplest solution? If every driver stayed just a little bit farther away from that car in front of them, this phantom might never have a chance to form. But try telling that to these guys.
So, phantom traffic congestion. Who coined this? Is this something you came up with?
It's not something that we came up with. There's some really interesting research about this, and what we found.
I always wonder how you guys find these things.
Just digging through the research. But the strange thing here is that it doesn't seem like there should be a traffic jam. You know, if there's cars in front of you, you're thinking, is there an accident? Is there construction? You know, or it's a holiday. But you really don't even need these extenuating circumstances to create a traffic jam of this kind.
You know, there's some other traffic jams too. I feel like you have traffic jams in subways when people don't get their card out, or you have traffic jams even going through the tolls if people don't prepare and get ready. You say with traffic in particular, leave more space, and then that way you won't have to slow down, so you won't have to waste time speeding up is the main thing with auto congestion.
Like we said in the piece, but it's really hard to tell everybody to do that at the same time and to get that
cooperation.
Exactly. But the curious factor is that cars slow down so much faster than they speed up. Typically, slowing down can be a safety concern, so you want to slow down quickly if you need to slow down quickly. But you tend to accelerate a lot more slowly than that. So when you slow down like that, you're bumping back everybody behind you, and even after you've sped up, those guys behind you are going to be slowed down.
Is the speeding up though, is it also just because people don't want to waste gas, so you don't want to rev the engine too much, or?
Boy, I can't speak for why people would speed up more, but if there's a car in front of you that if you don't hit those brakes, you know, you're going to bump into it. You're going to hit the brakes pretty rapidly. If there's open road in front of you, it doesn't seem like such an immediate thing.
Right. I just want to let everyone know too, if you are watching this on CBSNews.com or on one of our affiliate players, if you'd like to join our chat room, you can do that at ustreamtv.com. If you go to the CBS News live feed channel, and then make sure to click on the chat box versus the Twitter box. So if you have any questions or comments from Mitch, we'll incorporate those in the chat room right now. But just want to make sure you know where to find the chat room, and that is, again, on Ustream TV on their CBS News live channel player. So again, how do you guys find this one in particular? What piqued your interest in the phantom traffic problem?
You know, traffic, of course, is something that we all deal with. It's something that we all get very frustrated with. So we start with a topic like that and start digging into it to find these curious little things that pop up like that. 220 million Americans spend an hour and a half a day on the road driving. So this is something that can really affect a lot of Americans. And you know, things like why don't people take more public transportation? 6 out of 10 Americans have access to public transportation. More public transportation if you're in the Northeast or West, less public transportation if you're in the South or Midwest.
That's high though. 6 out of 10 is a lot higher than I would have thought.
It's a lot. So another thing that's curious to me is why aren't people taking public transportation more? And maybe that's a question for the chat room as well.
6 out of 10 people have public transportation, but do we know how many people that have access to public transportation actually use it?
Well, one thing that we do know is that only 10% of people use carpooling. So there's another thing that people could be doing. Surely we all have friends with cars that are driving in about the same direction. Sometimes we could carpool. Only 10% of us do that. So there's another question. Why do people not?
Chat room, why are you not carpooling? Why do you or don't you carpool if it's an option for you? Any questions or comments from the chat room?
Anything coming in? So I have a page out of my reporter's notebook here.
I like that. Literally ripped out of your reporter's notebook.
You can see the tearing there. We always have so much more information than we can fit into, in this case, a 1-minute story. So other interesting things that came up while we were looking through this. 2.9 billion gallons of gas are wasted every year waiting around in traffic jams,
because of phantom congestion.
And other types of congestion, all told, that's what it is. 4.2 billion hours a year are spent waiting in traffic congestion.
That's painful when you hear it like that. 4.2 billion hours.
Yeah. So of course there's the frustration of those crazy numbers like that, but also the economic impact is really large. With things like just-in-time delivery of products, trucks have turned into kind of a moving warehouse on the roads. So of course when all of this slows down and costs more fuel and more time, these prices are passed on to the consumer.
Right, so the phantom traffic is not just wasting your time, but it's also meaning your delivery costs are going up and some of these other things.
Yeah, and UPS is famous for their no left turn policy, where they try to map out their routes where they're only making wraps around the block instead of making a left turn.
That's actually the first I've ever heard of that. I did not know UPS has a no left turn policy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
You enlightened me this morning.
Surely they do sometimes, but their routes are planned so that they can turn right rather than turning left, which would potentially mean waiting for traffic to pass before they could make that left turn.
What do you think about some of the new PDA, the new programs for PDAs or iPhones that will map out your traffic and let you know where there are delays or where there is more traffic?
Right. Yeah. Another question for the chat room: are people using those sorts of technologies?
Do they find them to be reliable?
Yeah. My experience with that, driving between New York and Boston, for example, is that I always want it to be more accurate. However accurate it is, it always feels like I could be getting more information. For example, with Google Maps on iPhone. They do a little red line in the areas that are slowed down.
You should avoid.
Yeah, or you can expect a delay. It seems like they're only there for the big interstates, though. If you're taking any other route, it's hard to get that sort of, for me, to get that kind of information on that application.
Or the other problem is, I do use them, but the problem is if you map it out the night before, then it will give you, if the delay is actually only real time, so the night before you can find out the delay, but when you actually want to leave, it's kind of too late. I did that the other day. Yeah. Right before I left, I mapped it out again on my, PDA or BlackBerry, and it, warned me that there was an extra 5-minute delay, but at that point, it's kind of too late. So
another consequence of traffic congestion is unpredictability. If I'm driving, like I was saying, from New York to Boston, maybe I can make that in 3.5 hours. Or maybe it'll take 7 hours. So this kind of unpredictability also has an economic consequence, other than my relatives being upset that I didn't make it to dinner.
Right, absolutely. And it looks like we have a question from our chat room. I can see Rick over here ready to go.
Yes. MJA would like to know if smaller cars speed up faster than larger ones.
If smaller cars speed up faster, I would say yes if it has a larger engine. No, I mean,
we're making you be a scientist.
Yeah. Of course, wide variability in terms of how cars speed up. I'll tell you what my personal rule of thumb is, though. If I'm waiting in traffic, and I have no basis for this except that I just think it works in my experience.
This is the Mitch Butler theory.
Exactly. I try to get behind the shorter cars, right? Bigger car, bigger truck. If it's a big box truck or a semi truck.
It just take a lot longer to speed up.
It's going to take longer to speed up. So as I'm looking down the highway, I'm looking for those smaller cars to get behind.
And try and fall behind the smaller cars. That works.
To follow up on MJ's question, though, if you have a Porsche and you can do 0 to 60 in 5 seconds,
right?
I mean, does that mean anything if there's nowhere to?
Well, it probably means you'll be more frustrated if there's 10 cars in front of you that can't do 0 to 60 that fast, right? Because that's another thing about traffic is that it gives you, when you're driving, you have this feeling of freedom, right? You're out there on your own, you're going fast, and a traffic jam is the opposite of that feeling of freedom. So, boy, if I'm driving a Porsche, the traffic jam would make me all the more frustrated.
You were right before we went on. Actually, you mentioned something else that we actually only spend. Of the time we're on the road, only 20% of that time we're actually in traffic or congestion. And that's nationwide. So 80% of the time, traffic is fine. It's only 20%.
Right. That's actually a California number.
Oh, that's a California number.
So,
See,
which is as deep as I could find on that data, that said that 20% of your time, if you live in California, is spent in traffic congestion. Now, if you live in LA, you're going to tell me it's more than that. If it is, if you live outside of LA in a more rural area, it's going to be different.
But
also,
that's still a lot lower than I would expect. Maybe it's just that the bad experiences are so much more memorable than the free-flowing traffic that we remember all those bad California traffic experiences. Because 20% of the time, stuck in traffic in California is a lot lower than I would expect it. Being a Californian myself.
Absolutely. If I'm thinking, okay, I got to drive to work, it's going to take an hour. I wish it didn't have to take an hour. I wish I could be at work right now. If there's no traffic jams, no congestion, you're going to save, what's 20%? Like 11 minutes? It's
not that.
I'm still going to be frustrated that I have to spend nearly 50 minutes driving to work. So, you can look at these numbers like the 4.2 billion hours a year are spent waiting in traffic by all Americans over the course of a year. That sounds like a big number. It is a big number. If I break it down to my personal experience of waiting in a traffic jam, 11 minutes doesn't seem like a big number. So you can kind of spin that either way you want.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you mentioned that 60% of the country has access to public transportation, which is great, but I have to say it's a lot better out here in the Northeast, having lived in the Midwest and California. I think that's one of the problems is just because you have access to it doesn't mean it's necessarily efficient or effective. And I think that's one of the problems in a lot of other parts of the country.
Sure.
So something else exciting about the Fast Draw, you guys have the Fast Draw 5 now on your blog. Give us the quick pitch for that.
Sure. Fast Draw 5 is something that we've started to do every day, and we find interesting and surprising research, things that have to do with your everyday life that people are studying and that you might be interested in looking at. I draw a little cartoon, and we give you a link to this interesting research, and we do 5 of those every day. So check out our blog on cbsnews.com for that one. Yeah,
cbsnews.com/fastdraw, and that's where you can find the Fast Draw 5 every day. Plus, every Wednesday you have a new animation, and then you guys are always on the different broadcasts too, so you can find all your work on the Fast Draw blog, and you can also find your animations on iTunes, correct?
Yeah, there's a iTunes feed for that.
And then you can also follow them on Twitter, twitter.com/fastdraw. So lots of ways to get your Fast Draw fix every day and every week. Well, thank you so much, Mitch Butler. Rick, any other final questions from the chat room?
Anything?
I'm afraid not, but thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, everyone. Have a lovely day. We will see you again soon here on cbsnews.com.
Bye.